Peace, Islam. Gonna start up today. Brother D brought in this article right here that he found on the internet. Not art, well, a statement on the internet. I think we read this at class one time before, but we're gonna read this again because it's important to the subject matter for today of the great sellout, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Martin Luther King Jr., and European pseudo-sovereignty is actually Moorish nationality, right? So when you hear people talk about free man on the land and they're sovereign citizens and stuff like that, that concept comes out of our teachings to them, right? So we're going to start with an excerpt from a message delivered by Minister Louis Farrakhan on July 27, 2003. Before Elijah Muhammad, you looked at yourself as a Negro. One of our most wonderful black organizations was the United Negro Improvement Association, which showed that we still had growing to do. What a wonderful, wonderful teacher Marcus Garvey was. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad loved and admired him. Noble Drew Ali is the father of what you call the Moorish Americans or the Moorish scientists. Noble Drew Ali was admired by Honorable Elijah Muhammad because he said that Noble Drew Ali gave us a start in the direction toward Islam. The Moorish brothers wore fezzes with the crescent and the tassels swinging freely, and they wore the name Bey or El. And then, as you know, we always like to big up Elijah Muhammad for wearing his fez, and we want to give honors to the people who didn't bury this picture but actually brought it back up so that people could see that the Nation of Islam even knows about fezzes and, you know, I mean, that aspect, right? So where we're going now, it's on August 28th today. So we're gonna give some honors to Martin Luther King Jr., who had his famous "I Have a Dream" speech today. This was the day that the speech dropped, and what we want to make clear is that a lot of our leaders, people who we consider the founders of like our liberation, and people that we respect as ones that brought us back into thinking like ourselves and knowing that we're African and knowing that, you know, we have a history and all that. A lot of those people there were members of fraternal organizations, not necessarily Masons, but they belonged to like little groups that allowed them to have their position, to say that they're going to be, for example, for them to say that we're going to go and do a march to Washington, D.C. And when we go march to Washington, D.C., our purpose there is to basically make a statement that we're unified as black people and we can come together without violence and whatever the case is, right? So now the day after comes, right, after the big, you know, congregation, the day after comes, and nobody asks the question as to, okay, well, who do you go to go get this place? Because we're talking about the capital. You know what I mean? You're not just going to go get the capital to have a march, right? Secondly, not only is it the capital, but you're using the capital as a platform to punk off the same people that gave you the space. And they're letting you do it. letting you do it. So that's a problem right there for me, right? As far as going that direction with, you know, those are the people that I'm going to affiliate myself with. Because obviously you have connections with the person who has us in slavery. Obviously you and them are connected, right? So all these people belong to fraternal organizations, and they're not going to come out of their mouth and say we belong to that, because then that'll put a black mark, that'll put a blotch, or that would taint their appearance to the quote-unquote masses, their people that they're coming to save, or they're coming to bring some information to that's going to enlighten them or enrich them or make their life better or whatever, right? So Martin Luther King Jr. had this speech, and you know, people talk about the speech and they bring it up or whatever, but because majority of Negro, black, colored people, African, whatever, people with melanin, don't look at things from a law perspective, they always miss something, right? They'll get the point that, yeah, he was a good man and he fought for his people and he died for his people, but what was his message? What was he really trying to tell you, right? What was he really trying to tell you that made them put out the Boondocks episode where Martin Luther King came back and cussed everybody out, called them niggers and all that? You know what I mean? Like the humble guy who said no violence, right? Came back
pissed off
and ripped people.
You did that?
Huh?
When did that
It's in a Boondocks episode. You know the cartoon Boondocks?
Nah.
There's this cartoon Boondocks. Go look at that online. Yeah, pretty good cartoon. Right?
So it's actually fictional. It didn't happen.
Yeah, like it's fictional, but
it's based off truth.
But it's based on, you know what I mean, reality. You know what I'm saying? Right? So we're gonna read some of the speech, and then we're gonna look at it from a law perspective, not from the perspective of Negro, black, colored people. This is our black leader addressing us, and then after he's done talking, we're gonna clap, and then we're gonna congregate for, you know, an hour, 2 hours, and then we're gonna get back in our car and go back where we came. And then nothing's not gonna change. We're gonna go back, and there's still gonna be brothers on the corner selling drugs, still gonna be pregnant little sisters running around, deadbeat dads, and whatever. Still gonna be going on, right? Which kind of, to the rest of the world looking at us, you know, we look kind of hypocritical because, you know what I mean? We're still pushing the same stuff and nothing's working, and we still push that stuff that's not working. When we know it's not working, and it's clearly evident. We can go outside and get a newspaper right now, and I bet you there's a story about one of us in there. Some madness, not anything prestige, right?
Some options.
Yeah.
This,
right? So, August 28th, 1963. August 28th, 1963. Islam, greetings, man. Islam family. Good. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. That's the first line. So if this is going to be the greatest demonstration of freedom in the history of our nation, what nation is he talking about? Because if he's in a geographical location called America, right? And he's making the statement of our. He's not talking about Africa. If he was over there and said our, then okay, he's talking about over there. But if he's in this land and he's talking about our nation, then he's talking about our connection to this land. right? That's just what it is. It's not anything to debate or argue or bring points and facts to prove whether that's legit or not. That's what it is. All right? That's out of his own mouth. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. That's the second line. From a law perspective, an American is not a European. Like how people have in their mind that, you know, when they say, you know, you watch CNN or something, and the American people think that, you know, George Bush is going to win. Okay, American is not Europeans. Europeans come from Europe. And if a European comes to America, he doesn't automatically turn American overnight. He's still a European. But by not addressing them as European, it creates a false jurisdiction that anybody's included now in American, specifically Europeans, right? An American, by definition, is Aboriginal person of the Americas. A native of the Americas is an American, like period. So the great American who signed the Emancipation Proclamation was Abraham Lincoln. So if he's saying that Abraham Lincoln was American, then he's saying that Abraham Lincoln was indigenous. And if Abraham Lincoln was indigenous and he looked like a European as far as his complexion is concerned, then he's mixed. He has both sides in him, but only, you know, only his heart and how he did things that he did for quote unquote black people, shows who he really is. That's why they assassinated him, right? Because he was trying to do something positive. He wasn't trying to go with the fraud of, the fraud of emancipation, right? So the Great American Emancipation Proclamation, an executive proclamation issued January 1st, 1863 by Abraham Lincoln, declaring that all persons held in slavery in certain designated states and districts were and should remain free. And then our people say that that's what got them out of slavery. The fact that this proclamation was made. Right? This monumentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. This is Martin Luther King Jr. talking about. So we have come here today. We'll read that part again. Yeah. Just so we could really digest what Martin Luther King Jr. is saying. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So we have come here today to 100 years ago, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. Now remember, this is 1963, right? So we're going to go to Executive Order 11490, October 19th, 1969. And this document is called King Alfred Plan. This executive order was authorized October 1969 to counteract the minority, blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites in their rise from up under the depression and the powers that be, the government. This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The report is now in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage and knows that political asylum will not be available to him in other countries. That's King Alfred Plan. Telling you that
If I can ask,
we're bound to this continent by heritage. I was just going to say too, that if anybody has questions, just...
Yeah. Because I remember, who's King Alfred exactly?
Right.
Like, where is he from? Is he from like Europe? Is he from like the States?
Let's answer that. Alfred. Actually, first, king, noun. A male sovereign or monarch. A man who holds by life tenure and usually by hereditary right the chief authority over a country and people. Alfred. Old English. Elfred. E-L-F-R-E-D. Old English. It's Alfred. King of Wessex, sometimes called Alfred the Great. Youngest of the 4 sons of the King of Ethelwolf. He was sent in 853 and again in 855 to Rome, where the Pope invested him with the honorary dignity of a Roman consul. He lacked adequate instruction and learned to read English only after he was 12. His adolescence was marked by ill health and deep religious devotion, both of which persisted for the rest of his life. Little is known of him during the end of his father's reign and the reigns of his older brothers, Ethelbald and Ethelbert. But when Ethelred took the throne in 1865, Alfred became his Secundarius, or his viceroy, and aided his brother in subsequent battles against the Danes, who now threatened to overrun all of England. When the Danes turned from the east to north, okay, before we even go on further, just so you know, the Danes of Europe are Moors, dark-skinned people. Like the Danes, when you hear stories about the Danes aren't European people who like we see today in Denmark. Like the Danes are our people who look like us, the first Danes, the Danes that they're saying were threatening to overrun England. Right? When the Danes, which is why they called it King Alfred Plan, because the plan is directly.
His own land, he already had problem with him.
Huh?
So the plan that he had, was it for his own land or was it for the America? It was for both.
No, the plan is called King Alfred because of the Europeans fighting with the Moors.
Ah, okay. It's not really his plan.
It's not his plan. Yeah, they just named it right. Exactly. Right. They just named it after him because of the significance of the Europeans, the Pale Europeans, versus the Moors in Europe in 865, around those times. Right. So you can just go Google King Alfred and then get his story. Right? So the plan is just named after him. Just like you're saying, just like Jim Crow or whatever. Right? And King Alfred Plan is a military strategy. Right? So the government knows that these people that are called labeled the minority, blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites,
born to the land.
right, are bound to the land by heritage. And not only are they bound to the land by heritage, but political asylum won't be available to them in other countries either. Right?
What do you mean by that, though?
Basically that you didn't come from Africa. So don't think that those people over there are going to help you when, if the race war kicks off and you're out here with no ammunition and no guns and no anything, right? And all the other nations of the world are just standing back watching and not getting involved. Because the minority, blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites, are really indigenous people that got classified as those labels. And by them being classified as those labels, they become a term in law called civilly dead, or civiliter mortuus. So civiliter mortuus, CIVILITIER, or sorry, CIVILITER MORTUUS. Civiliter mortuus. And that means civilly dead. Dead in the view of the law. The condition of one who has lost his civil rights and capacities and is accounted dead in law. So minorities are dead in law from a law perspective. So internationally, everybody in the world knows that there's no such thing as Negro, black, colored people. Everybody knows. This is why political asylum will not be available to them in other countries. Because in order to go to that other country, you have to have a nationality. You can't go to another country without having a nationality. Right? If you talk to and when you engage other nations and you talk to them from the perspective of nation to nation, they'll tell you that I don't know what a black person is. Like just like that. I don't know what that is. We don't have that in my country. We don't have anything called that in our country. We can't point at something and say, yeah, that's a black man or a black woman or black people or something. Because that just doesn't exist. Right? They just have no idea what that is in their country. Right? So when he's making the statement about, the Negroes, the Negroes this, the Negroes that, he's stressing the point that that's the problem. Right? The problem is the term. The problem is the label. Accepting the label as a reality when it's not a reality. It's a label. Right? And also, too, with him bringing up the Emancipation Proclamation, right? That means that his mentality is not necessarily from a slave perspective. Right? Because you would have to be free to know this information. Like the slaves didn't know that there was that thing that went on. They didn't know when it happened that happened. That there wasn't front page news going across the country that there's this thing called Emancipation Proclamation. It was known to the people who were at the rally that it happened at, and then those people took the information and got it out. Right? There wasn't like a media outlet. Like how something happen right now, and in 10 minutes the whole world knows about it because of the internet. Right? He wasn't coming from a perspective of a slave, his mentality. during these times, because this is like late, right? 63, right? In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cash a check when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This is Martin Luther King talking about your land, your republic, you being the heir to this land through the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. But nobody ever talks about that stuff. Everybody talks about, oh, he's nonviolent and he's a good Christian preacher, and you know what I mean? Right? But how come they're not dealing with what he dealt with, which is the law, which is what everybody else is lacking? And he's right here in his famous speech that everybody knows about it, right? Right now, today, they're having some Martin Luther King celebration because of this speech right now, somewhere in the world, many places in the world right now. And they're going to read the speech and play the speech and, you know what I mean? But not get nothing done because they're not looking at it from a law perspective. They're looking at it from some emotional perspective of this is their black leader, having a speech to emotionally inspire them. When he's telling you the law. He's telling you that you're heir to this land. Like telling you out of his own mouth that when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, you go ask any black people, Negro people, colored people, African people about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they're going to tell you that came from some Europeans. And George Washington is the founder, and he's the first president. When Martin Luther King Jr. is taking ownership of the republic, right? So what's this republic that he's talking about? Because if we're supposed to be free, right? What do they say in slavery? If you want to hide something from a nigger, what you do? Okay. If you want to hide something from a nigger, put it in a book.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Right? So, let's see what they're hiding in the book. Because, all right, so republic, a commonwealth, that form of government in which the administration of affairs is open to all citizens. In another sense, it signifies the state independently of its form of government. So republic is a commonwealth. And that form of government in which the administration, or the heads, the people who are in control of the affairs, right? That's actually the office of the citizenship. That's not the office of the person who we hire and say, that guy is the president, or that guy is the prime minister, or that guy is the premier or the mayor. If we go vote and we vote for somebody and they go up there and they don't do their job and we're complaining about it, but we're not gonna omit ourselves from voting. We're just gonna wait till next year and vote for a different guy who's gonna go up there and do the same thing that the first guy did. But then we're not gonna do nothing, and then the vote's gonna come again 4 years later, and then we're gonna vote, and then it's gonna be a different guy, and then he's gonna do worse than the first two guys, right? And we keep playing the game. That's democracy. Republic is where the people are the government. And we don't need anybody out there to tell us about, pay taxes to something. We pay our own taxes right here, right? Like tithes. 20% goes in that bin right there, and then whatever's in that bin is for everybody to, use. Once it's reasonable amongst everybody and everybody agrees that, okay, you deserve, the 50-foot boat, so, okay, you could go and take the money, right? But you're not just going to go do it, because this is a commonwealth. The wealth is spread amongst all of us, right? The wealth isn't just at the eye of the pyramid. It's spread for everybody to have some. And that's in a republic. Now,
Do you look up Commonwealth?
right, we'll go there. Right? Now, one thing, too, I wanted to check was it mentions in here, in another sense, it signifies the state independently of its form of government. So you see how far we're going with this, because just from the speech, why we're looking up this stuff. Right? Like, it's because of the speech why we're even going in the law dictionary and looking up these words.
What's the title of that speech?
This is the I Have a Dream speech.
Okay.
Yeah,
No, I just need to print it and give it to my kids.
yeah, right?
Thanks.
Give it to your children, because kids are baby
Sorry,
goats.
My children, sorry.
Yeah. And we have enough baby goats running around here causing a ruckus. We don't need any more.
Okay.
We have enough kids.
Yeah.
See, the thing I don't understand is why didn't Martin Luther King break it down for the people to understand what he's talking
Yo,
about?
he did.
He did break it down.
He did
He
break
did.
it down?
What he's saying in here, these aren't vague statements.
It's
Like,
not.
these are bold statements that he's saying. Like, when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of, like, black people don't even know what magnificent
But
means.
this is what
That's
that's what I'm
what
trying
he's
to talk about. He didn't break
Right.
it down. He's speaking to people that didn't even know nothing about the history
Right.
of that period. So
But watch the play though.
Yeah.
What does that say about the people if this man is gonna say magnificent? Everybody's gonna be like, oh yeah, we're gonna follow this guy. And you don't even know what magnificent means? Right?
Yeah.
But you're gonna follow? Right? It really shows that the people are sincere, right? And they're willing to, put their neck on the line. But if you have a wrong person, then you're gonna get taken advantage of. You know what I mean? And again, when we say that these people belong to fraternal organizations, that means they can't talk.
Yeah.
And when they
People
talk,
know.
when they talk, they're gonna get assassinated.
Right.
Like,
So you think
simple
that's
as
why
that.
he killed him?
Yeah, there was this one.
That is.
There was the other one when
Yeah.
there was the other one when he said about I reached the mountaintop and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was pretty much
He
was revealing everything.
He was talking to one of his boys. his
he was
friends,
revealing
too.
everything.
One
Yeah,
was gonna die soon or something.
he was revealing everything.
Yeah, you know.
Right. So we wanted to go to state so we can get this in perspective, right? Because it comes back to the same thing again. State and people's mentality is a geographical location, right? State, a people permanently occupying a fixed territory, bound together by common law habits and custom into one body politic, exercising through the medium of an organized government, independent sovereignty and control over all persons and things within its boundaries, capable of making war and peace, and of entering into international relations with other communities of the globe. One of the component commonwealths or states of the United States of America. The term is sometimes applied also to governmental agencies authorized by state, such as municipal corporations. So right there it's telling you that anything municipal is a corporation. So Toronto's a corporation, Mississauga's a corporation, Welland and Aurelia and wherever, all those places are corporations. Has nothing to do with the land. Has nothing to do with the people permanently occupying a fixed territory, bound together by common law, habits, and customs into one body. It has nothing to do with that. So when we say city of Toronto, city of Mississauga, city of wherever, know that as soon as you say city of, you're not talking about a people permanently occupying a fixed territory, bound together by common law, habits, and custom into one body politic, exercising through the medium of an organized government, independent sovereignty and control over all persons and things within its boundaries, capable of making war and peace, and of entering into international relations with other communities of the globe. That's not what City of Toronto is. City of Toronto is a private corporation. That's why a few weeks ago, the mayor made a big statement, press conference and everything, that Toronto's open for business, that him and the owner of McDonald's and the owner of some next people are going to Chicago, to Mecca, to go meet with Rahm Emanuel, who signed the proclamation about the Moors being the indigenous people and all that just last year. He's going to Chicago to go meet with them to talk business.
Talk business.
Wow.
Right? Because Toronto specifically,
Okay.
Toronto specifically is open for business because it's a private corporation
Right, okay.
and it's open for business
So why?
for Chicago, because in the 80s, a lot of cities, when they started doing the whole corporate thing, they had to team up with cities in the States to find out how the corporate state runs.
Oh. So that's why they amalgamate Scarborough and all this place in one
Exactly.
city.
That's why they did the amalgamation, and Toronto, Mississauga, whatever became GTA,
Right.
and then after GTA it became T.O, and now everybody's repping that. We're talking about everything all together. Right?
So what business is he going to?
Well, what we say, right? We say that because we sent Mayor Ford requests in order to get a proclamation for Noble Drew Ali Day for last year, and they denied it because they claim that what we're doing is religious, and they can't give proclamations to religious organizations. But when you check the website, Hindus got stuff under the term of Hindu.
So can the head go back and say why other nations got it? What
This-
about us?
This is why, right, Toronto's open for business. Because mayors have a common bond, right? And some of his business has to do with the Moors. Guaranteed.
Chicago's. Some of Mayor Ford's business.
Some of Mayor Ford's business of going to Chicago, of going to Mecca, to go meet the same mayor that signed the proclamations last year
To the Moors.
saying that Noble Drew Ali is the prophet. There's these people called Moorish Americans. They use their last name El Bey, and they're the indigenous people of the Americas.
That's not the same Rahm Emanuel that was
Ram-
with the Obama.
Yeah, the same one.
No way.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
same
So
one.
what
The
is
same
he
one.
going to do, that guy in Chicago? Is he going to be on the Moor side?
No, well, it's not necessarily a thing of size because
Or I
Chicago,
shouldn't say
right?
side,
let me put it like this: Chicago is a state, right? The state is state of Chicago, and then Chicago or Illinois Republic,
Illinois, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So Chicago's the city, right, that he's going to, right? And the state of Illinois is governmental agency authorized by state, such as municipal corporations. So the city of Chicago is corporation. The state is
whatever
is-
that big long
right,
reference.
but it's only that if republic is attached to it. So when you see the term state, it should say state republic. Because remember, state definition is a people of the permanent, and then the republic definition, right, is relating to the same thing, right? So they're relative. They work together. So state republic. That's why when we were talking about with last class, son, Jamaica used to be a republic, but they don't say that anymore. Trinidad and Tobago used to be a republic, but they don't say that anymore. Guyana used to be a republic. They don't say that anymore. But Cuba is still a republic. Mexico is still a republic. Peru's a republic. There's republics still existing. So it's not like an afterthought. There's actually jurisdictions today that still call themselves republic, and the people are the ones that actually run that. And they have one representative that all of them say, okay, you're the guy or you're the female, and you're going to be the one that's going to talk on our behalf to the nations of the world. Right. And it's accepted.
You mean by like small tribes within the republic? That they have one leader or one leader for the whole republic?
One leader for the republic. Because it's a state. So if we say Toronto Territory is our state. That's what we're going to call our state, Toronto Territory. And then our state has all these citizens right here. All these citizens will say, okay, well, we want you to be the one that goes and speaks on our behalf.
Like a vote.
Right. Because and that's what voting is.
Yeah.
But they flipped it on people. They have people thinking that voting is them trying to get that person up there to be the head, when the power that person's using to call himself mayor or prime minister or premier is what the people just gave up by checking off that thing. Right? It's the energy that they're using.
What I'm saying is, what's the big difference between the republic and the regular place where they're voting?
The regular place that they're going to vote that's strictly corporate activity. That has nothing to do with the people, because they didn't set that up. That's somebody else's thing that they're going into and saying, okay, right? That's like we just give you a uniform and we tell you go outside, stop cars, and whatever you get, we split.
Charge, and then you have to choose between what they put in front of you.
Right. But the republic has to deal with the people, right? The people are the ones that actually, are actually the power, right?
Is Haiti still a republic, or is Haiti?
See, well, Haiti. When you look at Haiti, they move like a republic, but they're not really a republic because they're owned by France, even though they fought and they won and all that, right? How is it that they're a republic but none of their aid is getting to them? Your aid should be getting to you if you're a republic, because you would have your own people going for stuff. You're not going to rely on the enemy to be bringing you stuff that you need. You're going to send, but that's where it goes with them bringing in people who are bought out. And now you have the bought out people as the heads, and then the people think that the bought out people are on their side because they look like them when they're working for the enemy. It's Commonwealth, right? We're looking for. Anybody have any questions or comments or anything?
This was the mayor going down, you said, right?
Yeah,
So
the
they're
mayor.
being educated by that particular mayor about the facts.
Because again, it's since the 80s. The thing that they're doing with the Chicago-Toronto thing It's this thing called Sister Cities. It's an actual like thing that they've been doing. They have proclamations for it every year. That this city and if you go to like, for example, in the Chicago city, the City of Chicago website has a page about Toronto, talking about Toronto, and you know, this is our sister city and we're willing to do relations with them and whatever. And that's going on like all across the country. This thing called Sister Cities, where you know, cities from the States and cities from here are paired up. You know, a buddy system. Yeah, you know, to help you, you know what I mean? You help them go through the motions. Yeah, just like work. You have a buddy sit down next to you. When you know how to do the job, then, you're on your own. Right? That's what it is.
So we don't know what that guy in Chicago going to do on the Moore's behalf.
No, well, he already did what he's supposed to do on the Moore's behalf.
He signed already?
Yeah. He already put it on the public record.
Did he do it out of his own will, or because the Moors out there are doing heavy work for like push him to do it?
It's both. Because as the mayor, he has an obligation to the republic, even though he's holding a corporate position. Right? Even though he's holding a corporate position, he has
to follow a guideline.
He has to follow a guideline. And the guideline is the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, and the Articles of Incorporation and the Articles of Association and the treaties that came before all that. That's what the guidelines are.
What's the name of that proclamation that he signed? That he made? That he signed?
It was if you go to RV Bay Publications.
RV Bay?
Yeah, RV Bay.
Yeah.
Publications. All of them are on there. I think the tab is called Proclamations. And it wasn't just like Chicago. There was like another 9 other states that put out the same proclamation.
ASBEY, right?
Yeah. Yeah, RV Bay Publications.
RV?
Yeah.
B as in Victor.
Yeah, B as in boy.
Okay.
No.
RV.
V as in
Bay.
Victor.
Yeah, V as in
B as in
Victor.
Bob.
Yeah. Right? Commonwealth. The public or common well or welfare. This cannot be regarded as a technical term of public law, though often used in political science. It generally designates, when so employed, a republican frame of government, one in which the welfare and rights of the entire mass of people are the main consideration, rather than the privileges of a class or the will of a monarch. Or it may designate the body of citizens living under such a government. Sometimes it may denote the corporate entity or the government of a rural society or state, possessing powers of self-government in respect of its immediate concerns, but forming an integral part of a larger government or nation. Right? So Commonwealth is just breaking down republic to like furthermore, just breaking down even more. But the principle of it's the same, that the people are the ones that's in charge.
Oh, because I heard Commonwealth means like the Queen of England.
Right.
The taxes and whatnot she has paid off every head.
Okay, right. So that's where it's talking about. It generally designates, when so employed, a republican frame of government, one which the welfare and rights of the entire mass of people are the main consideration, rather than the privileges of a class or the will of a monarch. So the Queen is labeled as the monarch of Canada. So a real commonwealth is when the people are the main consideration.
So basically they just switched it up to fit their own taste.
Right. Right? And when they switched it, we went for the switch. Because if you want to hide anything from a nigger, put it in a book. Because niggers don't read. They'll flip through pictures every day, all day. But when it's time to hold one of these right here, right? They're not down with it. Right? And, more is like we lug this everywhere we go. Because you're going to see somebody that's going to say some crap about they know something. And then you have to show them. Like, what you're saying is wrong. Did you ever see this before? No, I never seen that before. But this is the white man's law book. Well, not really, because a lot of stuff in here is Latin. And it has nothing to do with Europeans.
Man came first.
Right?
English came last.
You know what I mean? Right? And then remember, like, you haven't gone nowhere in the speech yet. Like, we're still at the, what?
Fourth line or something.
Like, maybe like 4th paragraph in the whole speech. And it's like 3-4 pages. 4 pages. So we're just going to go to the underlined parts. All right. So now it is time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Right? So this is how you knew that he knew about the prophet, because this is Noble Drew Ali's 101 questionnaire. And up in that corner right there, you can see the handshake of brotherhood. And then the handshake of brotherhood is connected to the fact that Noble Drew Ali is standing on this rock of salvation, and then he's talking about the solid rock of brotherhood. Right? That's just one point. Right?
Is it?
Secondly,
This is the same handshake they show for.
yeah, for
the
Freemasons and
Freemasons.
stuff like that. Right. Right? But that's not their stuff. Because they'll say that that's not our stuff. They'll say everything that we have was handed down to us by the silent white brotherhood.
But
They
when they
call
say
it-
white, he said once again they mean like the spiritual
Right,
higher
the spiritual high power.
color
They're not
wise.
talking about
Yeah,
skin
they won't
complexion.
break it down though.
But they can't break that down.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
break
Then
that
the
down, then
people
you give
will-
up.
they reveal
Then
the
everybody
secret.
wakes up and the matrix will just shatter. You know what I mean? Everybody becomes light beings again, and then it's just like orbs just freaking flying everywhere.
But then they can't lie about it. We're saying too,
Right.
because it's based on truth.
It's based on
You gotta
truth.
say the
So
but
that
like hitting in the mist.
Right. Right? But again, it comes back to the thing of if we don't do our own due diligence, right, then everything that gets put out is for naught. Like all these keys that Martin Luther King put out, right? This being revealed, because this has never been revealed before. This is the first time that this is getting broken down on this level. Because I never seen it out there broken down on this level, right? So it's not out there. Because everybody knows about Martin Luther King, and nobody ever talks about, he talks about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and all that. And he's talking about the law. He's talking about the solid rock of brotherhood, citizenship rights. Right? Now, coming back to brotherhood, I just wanted to read also the Holy Covenant of the Asiatic Nation. And this is the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, chapter 25. Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother hath given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. Brotherhood. Right? In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongdoings. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and gall and hatred. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. This is 63. laying it all out there. Forget, yeah, white people, black people, but you know, we're all human beings. You're gonna come out and say you're not black people and you're not white people and you're not Negroes because he has an oath. So there's only certain things that they're gonna allow to get out, right? And majority of the stuff they're gonna hold back because they're compromised. Their position is compromised as a black, African, Negro, etc. leader. Their position is compromised. That's why they always talk about you're black, you're African, you're everything except Moors.
Does more mean black?
More means black to the ignorant. Because people are going to go and they're going to say, for example, they're going to say, okay, for example, yeah, that Hidden Colors. Oh, that movie was the best movie, the best documentary I ever saw on black people. It actually showed us who we are and told us who we are. Yeah, but you're still calling yourself black people. You're still calling yourself African. When the thing told you that, okay, well, if more means black, and black's an adjective, then why are you going to call yourself black? Why not just call yourself more, which is the noun, which really identifies person, place, thing, or idea. But they push the black, right? They're going to make you believe that you can just put aside the thing of the Moors as far as our identity, right? Because all these other ones mean that also. So you don't have to use that one. Just use all these other ones. Okay, well, why can't I use that one? Well, no, just use these ones. Because if you say African, you're tying yourself to this. If you say black, you're just this. And if you say nigger, nigger comes from Naga. So it's okay to call yourself nigger because that's ancient, right? And you know, but your real identity is Moors. Black Moors, Sri Lankan Moors, Pakistani Moors, Ceylon Moors. Like, there's even goldfish called Moors. Right? And it's a black fish. But it's not called a blackfish. It's called a moorfish. Why is a fish
Call more.
not called a blackfish when it's black? Like, for real, like, it's actually black. Not brown, pretending to be black, or light brown, or caramel, or black. But that's not called a blackfish. It's called a moorfish. And we're not going to accept more as our identity. We're going to accept black and colored and Negro and African and all these labels. Right? I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and the ghettos of our northern cities. Ghettos. No. So, just everything that he's dropping, that he's not saying out of his mouth that he's dropping this, but this is what he's dropping by words that he's using in this speech. So he said ghettos. Our ghettos. November 23rd, 1939, General Governor Hans Frank issued an ordinance that Jews 10 years of age and older living in the general government had to wear the Star of David on armbands or pinned on the chest or back. This made the identification of Jews easier when the Nazis began issuing orders establishing ghettos. The Nazis undertook to liquidate the ghettos as they began full implementation of the final solution to the Jewish question in 1942. Right? So in 1942, they started to implement the final solution to the Jewish question. The Jews of 1942 weren't Europeans, they were dark-skinned people. The Jews that were in the ovens in Germany were brothers and sisters. These Europeans, called Ashkenazis, that they made wear a Star of David on armbands or pinned on the chest or back, was specifically to designate the fake Jews from the real Jews, to the dumb Nazi officers that were playing the front line. Because remember that every single war, every single war that you see happening, from the Punic Wars until the World Wars, are directly related to the relationship between Moors and Romans. And this bitter feud's been going on ever since they came out the caves. Ever since the Visigoths. Right? The so-called Vikings. So this is a war that's been going on. And the final solution of the Jewish question was in 1942, when massive deportations of Jews to concentration and death camps continued until the summer of 1944. By that time, almost all of the ghettos had been liquidated. Ghettos also functioned as transit camps for many who were later sent to Auschwitz or other death camps. This is just by him mentioning ghetto. And us not knowing what the origin of ghetto is. Thinking that the origin of ghetto is where, poor people live. No, origin of ghetto is where you go before they send you to the furnace. Once you get sent to the ghetto, you already know that your next stop is the furnace. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, or trying to escape or whatever. You know that once you hit the ghetto, next stop is furnace. Right? So what King Alfred Plan say about the ghettos and these furnaces that they had in Germany? We talked about this in class too, but we have to put this on the record so people can see what's coming for the minority. Blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites, when they try to rise up from under the depression and the powers that be called the government that has them in slavery right now, mentally and physically, and emotionally and economically and every other way. Survey shows that during a 6-year period, production created 9 million objects, or 1,500,000 each year. Production could not dispose of the containers, which proved a bottleneck. However, that was almost 20 years ago. We suggest that vaporization techniques be employed to overcome the production problems inherent in King Alfred. So instead of using the furnaces, which is going to leave bones because bones don't burn, right? And which is going to leave evidence that they actually did, depopulation. They had a depopulation program in the U.S., which is a private corporation and separate from the United States of America. They're going to use vaporization techniques. So they have no evidence. So there's no bottleneck. So there's not all these bones getting clogged up in the furnace, stopping the process of eliminating these people.
They're speaking in parables too, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So meaning different system that you're gonna put in the government. And
Exactly.
all this to use it.
Right. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. So we go back again to the Circle 7, the Holy Quran of the Moor Science Temple of America, and we go to chapter 5, which could also be found in a book called The Aquarian Gospel by Levi Dowling. Chapter 5. After the feast, the homeward journey, the missing Jesus, the search for him. His parents find him in the temple. He goes to them to Nazareth, symbolic meaning of the carpenter's tools. Alright? So, again, Martin Luther King. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. Circle 7 Quran. And then he went forth with his parents on their way to Nazareth, and when they reached their home, he wrought with Joseph as a carpenter. One day, as he was bringing forth the tools for work, he said, "These tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind, where things are made of thought and where we build up character. We use the square to measure our lines, to straighten out the crooked places of the way, and make the corners of our conduct square." The rough places will be made plain. The crooked places will be made straight. Right? It's code that he's talking in. And the code is evident to those who read. If you don't read, you're not gonna get the code. You're not even gonna know what's going on. You're just gonna assume stuff. Once you assume, you're done for. Right? So that was Martin Luther King. Right? So honors and big ups to Martin Luther King for dropping it like it's hot. The next thing we're going to read is excerpt from Muhammad Ali's book, The Soul of a Butterfly. For 12 years, Malcolm had followed Elijah Muhammad and believed everything he taught. Malcolm remained a devout follower of Elijah Muhammad until the last year of his life, when he went on a pilgrimage to Mecca and the holy city. There, Malcolm saw people of all colors living together in true brotherhood. There was no segregation. All of the people worked together for the common good. He ate from the same plate and drank from the same glass as blonde, blue-eyed, white-skinned Muslims. He came to accept that they were truly brothers. Malcolm now questioned the path of the Nation of Islam and the leadership of Elijah Muhammad. True Islam didn't teach many of the things Elijah had been teaching. Malcolm was going to separate from Elijah Muhammad and wanted me to come with him. He said it was important that I take his side so that I could become a messenger myself and tell other young black people in America what was going on. Malcolm and I were so close, and he had been through so much, but there were many things for me to consider. Elijah Muhammad had given me my name, Muhammad Ali. I felt that he had set me free. I was proud of my name and dedicated to the Nation of Islam as Elijah Muhammad had presented it. At that point in my journey, I wasn't ready to question his teachings. I was forced to make a choice when Elijah Muhammad insisted that I break with Malcolm. I was on a tour of Egypt, Nigeria, and Ghana. I saw Malcolm in Ghana, where he stopped on his way back to Africa, and he was wearing his traditional Muslim white robes, further signifying his break from Elijah Muhammad. He walked with a cane and looked like a prophet's stick, and he wore a beard. I thought he'd gone too far. When he came to greet me, I turned away, making our break public. Turning my back on Malcolm was one of the mistakes that I regret most in my life. I wish I'd been able to tell Malcolm I was sorry, that he was right about so many things, but he was killed before I got the chance. He was a visionary, ahead of us all. Elijah Muhammad had a mission to unite black people in the spirit of racial pride, and he accomplished much. After Elijah Muhammad's death, his son Wallace D. Muhammad took over the nation and brought me along with many of his father's followers to mainstream Sunni Islam. Malcolm was the first to discover the truth that color doesn't make you a devil. It is the heart, soul, and mind that define a person. Malcolm X was a great thinker, an even greater friend. I might never have become a Muslim if it hadn't been for Malcolm. If I could go back to do it over again, I would never have turned my back on him. And what were these many things that, he told him to consider? Well, when El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz came back from Mecca, his whole vibration changed as far as his delivery of, to the people, right? Changed completely, like total 180. But nobody's not going to look at that, right? Muhammad Ali groveling at Elijah Muhammad's feet because he gave him his name, right? But Malcolm X took the Hajj. His name changed. Well, people still call him Malcolm X, 2012. And they don't call Muhammad Ali Cassius Clay in 2012. So there's obviously a conspiracy going on. There's obviously propaganda going on with regard to the truth about certain people, right? One of them was Elijah Muhammad, was Martin Luther King Jr. That we took one speech, and that one speech is constitutionally superior to anybody else that had any speeches during that time. Like he was dealing with the real issues. But Negro, black, colored people don't study, so they don't know. So he went over their head. Assassinated him. They didn't really honor him because they didn't implement nothing that he brought. So he died in vain. Before him, Garvey died in vain. Noble Drew Ali died in vain. And then we come up front now, and then we have El-Hajj. Same thing. This is a secondary source. This is not El-Hajj talking. This is a secondary source saying that Malcolm X was splitting. He wasn't connecting himself to the Nation of Islam. Why was he going so far to disconnect himself from the Nation of Islam? Because he was studying the law and he knew about jurisdiction. And he knew that if he continued to play the game of bow tie and whatever, that he would be in their jurisdiction and it would be easier for them to take him out. But his problem is that he didn't stop teaching. He didn't stop mentioning certain people. He kept mentioning people, which gave jurisdiction, right? Just like if we all come in here with, like starving, right? And I claim this table. And everybody's starving and they have their food and, you know what I mean? And, I say, hey, oh, yeah, you see that? Everybody looks over there and forgets that I claim this table. And everybody puts their food down, go to the washroom, wash their hands. Everybody comes out. Food's not yours. You just put the food in my jurisdiction. Because I claim the table. Now you didn't say, no, I can't claim the table. You didn't make a counterclaim to the table. You just put down your stuff. All right, so everything on the table is mine now. And you can't cry, you can't complain about it. It's not racism. The devil didn't do it. You're the one that didn't know the law and allowed yourself to fall into a fraudulent jurisdiction. Just like we fall into the fraudulent jurisdiction of City of Toronto, Canada, city of this, province of this, thinking that that's the land when those are private jurisdictions that are artificially created, and then we go in it. So now that makes us artificial with that jurisdiction. And now we're done for. Right? This is why Muhammad Ali stuck so strong to don't call me Cassius Clay. Because Cassius Clay was who they were trying to put in the draft. Because Cassius Clay is a private corporation. Clay is a European name. So they have jurisdiction on that name. So they can tell him, go in the draft and go fight. But if he says, well, my name's Muhammad Ali now, like they're caught in a paradox now. Because they can't really tell him go fight. But they can't really tell the people why he can't go fight. And why they just turned their back on it and pretended like, okay, well, let's just go bomb something and put people's attention to that. Instead of them paying attention to the fact, hold on a second. This guy said, okay, so he didn't go to anybody. He just came on the TV and said, my name, don't call me that name anymore. And that's it. No papers, no cards, no going to the United States government, fill out a form so you can change your name and then get all your license and everything in that name now. Like, he didn't do anything like that. He just said, yo, my name is, well, Cassius Clay. If you call me that name again, I'm going to kick your ass.
You see, when he says he's the one that gave me my name, speaking about the lead, Jack,
Right.
he's probably talking about he's the reason why they went to war too.
Yeah.
But he's saying it in code.
In code.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because remember too that there were the whole problem that the European governmental corporations had with the Nation of Islam was that they were calling themselves Asiatic black man, which in their mind put them in Asia, which is the same people that they're fighting against right now. So now it seems like these people are allies now. It seems like these Negro black colored people who were slaves are now adopting Japanese or Asian frames of mind, which makes them allies with them who we're fighting against. So we need to do something about that. Right? But again, it comes back to how did we get distracted? How did we get distracted from the lessons? How did we get distracted from, Martin Luther King was talking about constitutional stuff, and then El Hajj came back from Mecca, and he stopped talking about black stuff, and he started talking about human rights. And then, actually, those two were actually trying to link up, right? They were actually trying to come together, right? And to further, remember like Inception, right? To further implement into the people's mind that these two people are separate, when there's actually pictures of them together, right? But they make it like these people are separate. How they did that was with X-Men. Because Professor X and Magneto is Malcolm X and Martin Luther. And that's what the dude from the comic breaks down. That's how he came up with the idea of that.
Professor X is who?
Professor X and Magneto
is
Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. That's why Professor X was non-violent and he didn't want to fight. And then Magneto was the one, and he had a big X on his forehead. Right? Like everything laid out. Right? Even those guys in the comic strip were best brethren. They weren't enemies. How people look at it like they're enemies.
But they show them too later on in the movie. They show how when they were younger they used to be friends.
Right. Exactly. Right. Okay. Let's see what this. All right. So we got about 45 minutes left on this battery right here, so we're just gonna try to smash through this stuff. Melanin injections. This is just some stuff that I just wanted to put out there on the record. Melanin injections are made up of a synthetic hormone that is man-made. A melanin injection is not actual melanin, rather it is a substance created to mimic the actions of melanin in our bodies. Not our bodies, but those guys' bodies. In other words, it will darken skin tone and lead to a tan. The name of this newly created hormone is melanotan. And this is the substance that has been researched over the past few years. And then they talked about fair-skinned Irish injecting themselves with melanotan to achieve bronze summer look. Right, so, you know, Europeans going out of their way to not just, you know, like be us, wear baggy pants and hoodies and stuff, but they're actually now, they want the skin tone actually now, right? But what's really going on that Negro black colored people aren't paying attention to? What's going on is that these so-called blacks, Latinos, whatever, and poor whites, right? Now, the Europeans that Martin Luther King was talking about, right, are the poor whites, and then the Europeans that are on our side, that are actually, you know, that help people escape slavery and, you know, those type of people, right? Those people are still around today, right? Now, the idea of us saying we're Moors is for us to make a claim that, we're not property of the artificial corporate states, right? That we know that those are artificial corporate states. That's why when Moors write and they speak about the geographical location, we always identify it as territory or county or republic or continents or kingdom or empire. We don't say city of, well, I was driving around the city of Toronto. Like, because you just put yourself in a jurisdiction talking like that, right? So the idea of being a sovereign citizen, or this idea of, you know, free man on the land, or you might see like on YouTube, there's Europeans who are, you know, not driving with a license, and they say they have a right to travel because they can free and they're children of God and all this type of stuff. So, you know, the history of that comes out from this movement called Posse Comitatus.
Please, brother.
Posse Comitatus. And it was founded by a Christian minister called William P. Gale. And he birthed like things like the Christian Patriot Movement, Redemption Movement, you know, the Europeans who don't want to pay taxes and fighting the IRS and talking about, you know, the government fraud and all that type of stuff that's going on, right? Gale identified the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution as the act that converted sovereign citizens into federal citizens by their agreement to a contract to accept benefits from the federal government. Other commentators have identified other acts, including Uniform Commercial Code, Emergency Banking Act, Zone Improvement Plan, and the alleged suppression of the Titles of Nobility Amendment. Many of those in the movement consider the term sovereign citizen an oxymoron, preferring to view themselves as sovereign individuals seeking the truth. Sovereign citizen leader Richard MacDonald has established state citizen services centers around the United States. Writing in American Scientific Affiliation, Dennis L. Feucht, F-E-U-C-H-T, described McDonald's theory that claims that there are two classes of citizens in America: the original citizen of the states and U.S. citizens. McDonald's asserts that U.S. citizens, or 14th Amendment citizens, have civil rights. Legislated to give free black slaves after the Civil War rights comparable to the unalienable constitutional rights of white state citizens. Islam. The benefits of U.S. citizenship are received by consent in exchange for freedom. So the sovereignty movement is making the argument or the statement that the people have accepted the federal government as legit when the federal government is actually using them, right? Based on the corporate status of the federal government, and people not recognizing that that's the position. Now, what a lot of these freedmen, European sovereigns, don't put out there is that prior to the freedman movement even having any momentum, is that they were going to Moors classes, just like Europeans that you might see come to our class. And then 10 years later, you find out that this European is charging $1,500 for lectures, talking about the same stuff that you taught him 10 years ago in your class, right? But again, when we say, if you want to hide something from a nigger, put it in a book, we're not only talking about dark-skinned people. We're not only talking about our people.
Talking about a class.
We're talking about a class of people that do not take serious the significance of the liberal arts. They don't even consider science, math, and all those type of stuff. They just basketball, like dancing, party, studying and all that stuff. That's not even something that they gravitate to, right? Now, these different Europeans demonstrate in different ways, right? But ultimately, everything that they're presenting is really only for them, and we can't really use it really, because their status is different than ours. So if they say state of something, and we say state of something, those don't have the same position, because as a corporate citizen, which a European is when he's not in his own land called Europe or countries in that jurisdiction, right? They are corporate citizens once they're not home. That's all they can be, because they're not in their own land. So being that they're corporate citizens, their position is to make everybody else corporate. Once everybody else becomes corporate, now they seem free. But these people that they say are the sovereign individuals, they can't be sovereign. Because in order to be sovereign, you have to be in your own land. Now, there's Negro, black, color people that instead of following what Noble Drew Ali brought, who's the true sovereign and looks like them, they're going to go follow these Europeans.
And when those guys telling me it doesn't apply to you, they'll be like a racist.
Right. When that's not the case.
Yeah.
Right? The point of the matter is that everybody knows that you're Moors. The whole world knows that you're Moors. But if you don't say it, don't expect them to say it. Because if you don't say it, you're admitting that you're civiliter mortus. And if you're civiliter mortus and you're dead in the eyes of the law, then rights don't apply to you. Nobody has to respect you. Nobody has to award you anything. They can, come into your community and set up a shop, right? And 20 years will go by, and 99 people are going to switch ownership in that shop for 20 years, and none of them are going to be a Negro, black, color person,
Oh, yes, that's what they're doing.
right? And why is it that they're doing that? Because the people who have nationalities deal with the people who don't have nationalities only on the basis of give me your money. Because that's the only thing that I can get from you. I can't get anything else from you other than your earnings. Because you don't study the liberal arts, you don't know who you are, you keep calling yourself something that you're not, and want me as an international person to accept that position when I know in my own language, in my own country, that that position is fraudulent. And then you're going to say that I'm racist because I'm not accepting that fraudulent position. When the point is, change your position. So they go and they figure that, okay, well, if this European could go and, put up a video on YouTube that, a European police officer stopped him, and he, as a European, didn't have a license, he had some papers, and he showed it to the officer, and the officer said, okay, have a nice day, that they could go do that. And when they go do that, and they get taken advantage of, and they get violated, they're never going to blame that they're wrong. They're never going to point to themselves and say, you know what, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have followed that European. They're going to say the information's wrong, maybe I didn't type this proper, that guy's racist, maybe he was having a bad day, maybe, they're never going to say that it was me, right? But how are they going to say that it's me if they are followers and they didn't take initiative to go study for themselves to know what it is? Which is what being a leader is. Which is what all these so-called black leaders came to tell us to do. Right? And again, it's not a thing of certain people can't really just come out and say certain stuff. Right? They can't. But they're going to tell you in code. Like everybody, me personally, I know W.E. Du Bois, his position was from the elite, the paid off people, right? But this is what he said. This is a book called W. Du Bois Speaks, Speeches and Addresses, 1920 to 1963. Okay? To sum it up, Garvey is a sincere, hardworking idealist. He is also a stubborn, domineering leader of the mass. He has worthy industrial and commercial schemes, but he is an inexperienced businessman. His dreams of Negro industry, commerce, and ultimate freedom of Africa are feasible, but his methods are bombastic, wasteful, illogical, and ineffective, and almost illegal. If he learns by experience, attracts strong and capable friends and helpers instead of making needless enemies, if he gives up secrecy and suspicion and substitutes open and frank reports as to his income and expenses, and above all, if he is willing to be a co-worker and not a czar, he may yet, in time, succeed in at least starting some of his schemes toward accomplishment. But unless he does these things, and does them quickly, he cannot escape failure. Right? Now, you're going to look at it, and you're going to see that, they obviously have some beef or whatever, and they're going to talk, they're going to smack each other back and forth, right? But some of the things that he addresses in here are the Negro problem, which Marcus Garvey's association was founded in order to improve. So if people who are directly connected to him because they know him, you know, like they see, just like how we see each other, they saw each other, right? They knew of each other. And for him to make these statements, one, without offering that assistance that he said Garvey, you know, he wasn't a good businessman. Okay, well, somebody could have schooled him. You know, if his schemes were so, you know, outrageous, but they had a possibility of actually manifesting, then, you know, you Boule guys, W. Du Bois and all these NAACP people, instead of founding your NAACP with the Jews, you should have went behind Garvey and helped him out, right? But you already know how the black on black crime goes since back then, right? So now Noble Drew Ali came and said that Marcus Garvey is the forerunner because Marcus Garvey dealt with nationhood, which is the point that W.E. Du Bois is making, that Marcus Garvey's position was actually legitimate and it could have manifested into something, right? But agents that were put in place to stop people from following him, right? So once they got all the heads that were actually doing something out the way, they brought in their puppets, and the puppets have been running it from 1930 up until now. And now they have the European sovereign people now taking the Moorish information that they were taught and creating a false jurisdiction with those people. They even have people with turbans and fezzes exercising as how these sovereign Europeans exercise, right? For example, there's a man by the name of David Wynn Miller, right? European dude. And David Wynn Miller's concept is that he invented a mathematical interface for language, or quantum math communications and language. And according to Miller's teachings, the addition of hyphens and colons to one's name turns one from an ordinary taxable human into a non-taxable prepositional phrase, quote unquote. So now you're going from being Negro, black, colored, right, which is fraud, into being a prepositional phrase now, right, which is grammar. So you're still not being yourself, right? And then you have Moors. So it goes like they are distinguished from the name listing on the birth in all capital letters, which he claims turns one into a taxable person. Example, David Wynn Miller in all caps, as opposed to full colon David hyphen Wynn full colon Miller. And then you have these Moors now coming, and now they're calling themselves colon Nanya hyphen Shabu L, you know, using registered trademark and all this type of stuff, when that position is a fraud. Because you can't be a prepositional phrase. You, the individual, can't be a prepositional phrase. That's an impossibility. But they teach these things, right? And we're just bringing that up because the same brother that teaches these things is locked up right now for teaching these European concepts. And then his followers, opposed to telling people that, well, this way is wrong because the person that we follow is locked up for following these pseudo-Europeans, they're going to still challenge people on, well, how come you're not putting, how come you're not putting colon on your name? Why are you saying that you're a Moor when, you know, or why are you saying that you're Aboriginal when, you know, Aboriginal comes from abhor, and abhor is negative, when abhor has nothing to do with negative, right? So the real deal is study, what everything comes down to. From when we started today till now. Go back, check out some of these people that we call our leaders or whatever, and go reread their stuff again and see really what's in there, right? Because we've neglected to do that part. We've always allowed other people to tell us stuff, right? That's like there's this they have this New World Order organizational chart. And it says, Illuminati bloodlines, Rothschilds, Astor, Bundy, foundation nations of the New World Order, America, England, financial groups, research institutes, secret societies, intelligence, religious, educational, political, corporations, and who's involved in this New World Order agenda. But then at the top of the pyramid scheme, they have the Great Seal up there, right? And we know that the Great Seal, when you look at the Great Seal like this, we know that that's the circle 7. It's a 7 in a circle. But if we do it this way, we know that that pyramid represents Kemet and has nothing to do with New World Order or Europeans. And what they're really saying about the New World Order is that the New World Order belongs to the people who built the pyramids. That's really the New World Order. The New World Order is when these people, call themselves Negro, black, colored people, take back their rightful position. Because just like Martin Luther King said, we're the heir. And I even skipped over that part when I read the thing today, when I printed it. I missed that part that it said heir in there when I was reading it. That's how in code these things are. Right? You know what I mean? That's how in code this stuff is. So somebody's passing around pictures like these on the internet, saying New World Order, and this is the chart of the New World Order and all that. And if they don't have Rothschilds or Bilderberger or whoever at the top of the thing, they have this symbol or they have something else, and they don't have the names of these so-called Illuminati bloodlines that Alex Jones and all these people talk about, then that's not their stuff. That's not theirs. If their name's not at the top of it. And these guys' names aren't at the top of it. It says Illuminati Royal Bloodlines, then it says Rothschilds and everybody, and above Illuminati Bloodlines, there's a sigil or a symbol that is saying 1,000 words. More than all the words that are underneath the symbol. And when the elite talk, they talk in symbology. They don't talk in words. Right? This is the mountaintop that Martin Luther King, when you guys mountaintop saw the promised land on the other side, this is the mountaintop. This seal right here, that eye that they say is Allah, and it represents the sun, which is the noblest image of Allah. Right? And the sun is man, which means woman first. And the New World Order that all these people are saying is, some demonic thing or whatever. The New World Order is when the Moors wake up, right? And the Europeans go back to where they came from. Make them go back to Africa. Because we don't have to go anywhere. This is our jurisdiction. Right? How is it our jurisdiction? Go back to the prophet again. Because it's not really complicated. Because the man laid down everything for us to do what we're supposed to do. But we don't want to follow what he brought. We want to follow all these false prophets claiming to be what they're not. Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit in northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across Great Atlantis, even onto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before the great earthquake which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. So what are they saying when they say you're a slave and you came from Africa? What they're saying is that even if you're a slave and you came from Africa, your jurisdiction as a Moor extends from southeast to northwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, Central America. So even if you make the claim that you're a slave that came from Africa, you still have a claim to this land that you have to claim before you even go over there. That's why Noble Drew Ali set it up that every member that comes to our temple, they must proclaim their nationality. Because once you have a nationality, now you can go anywhere that you want to claim to go. If you want to go back to Africa, West Africa, North Africa, wherever you got taken from, no problem. Then they'll willingly accept you. But they're not going to accept you as Negro, black, colored. I know that for a fact because I know people who are from here and they went back to Africa and, you know, they were welcome. And people told them, yeah, come to the village and come and eat. And here's kente cloth and here's beads and here's whatever. But, you know, like, you can't really stay here and do nothing. Like, you can't come here and, like, this is not a vacay spot. Yeah. Give thanks. Right? You can't come here and chill. You have to come here to be productive. You have to come here to make an impact on society. Right? I don't see none of those. And anybody who you see going down there, they're going down there with boxes of clothes and toothbrush and whatever. When people need, you know, bulldozers and architects and things of that nature, right? To help build some stuff. Because we already know that, you know, land's in drought. You know, land got raped. All this oil that we have over here came from over there. All these diamonds and gold and whatever that came from over here came from over there. So, you know, over there is raped. There's not too much that we can really get from there. That's why all those people are coming over here. That's why I brought the thing about the melanin. Because all those people that are coming over here, you're not even going to know who is who when time comes and they start eliminating people.
It's like the stars, the Jews.
Yeah. All you're going to realize is that, you know, they're killing all these black people, but they're still black people. And they're murdering all these black people, and they're still black people. Because a lot of those people, they got the melanin shot.
They got the melanin shot.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't get that part.
That's what they got. You get the shot.
Yeah, like you get a shot that makes your skin dark. You don't even have to go in the sun anymore.
This one was in, I think in the 70s, 72 or something like that. In England, there was a guy that did that.
Yeah.
To see what it was like to be black. That was the first person who did that.
For real.
Shot.
Yeah.
Did I wrote the book? Black Like Me?
Black like me. Yeah.
Right. So he actually got a shot.
Yeah, he turned himself.
For real.
To
I
see
thought
what
that
it
was I thought he did the makeup vibes. Right?
No.
No.
For real. Okay. Now you're alright. The blacks don't read.
If I remember correctly,
So I have a question.
they got cancer too.
After he done it, he got
I do
cancer.
believe. Don't take that as.
anything
I'm pretty sure, but don't take it as absolute fact. But you know, because that happened when I was growing up, so a little bit aware of that.
Yeah.
As far as the proclamations go, how much detail should you put in there, or should you keep it more general? Like portions of Quran there might be useful. How far do you go with that, or portions of treaties and so on.
Like if to go to them, you mean, or
Yeah, for them, like you may have to, like you're gonna submit something to.
or like submitting up something to them to get.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's back to if they put out, okay, the reason why in the States all the proclamations came out is because they have an obligation to the Republic. Canada, there's no Republic for them to have an obligation to. It's just a corporate jurisdiction owned by the United States. But the United States isn't the Republic. That's a private corporation. So Canada's floating on water.
So there's no value necessarily.
So there's no real value to getting the proclamation from them anyways, because they're a non-entity.
To put one out to them.
Right, yeah. For us to get it, like we did it just to see what, what's going to go on. Right, what the response is going to be.
Right.
But, we were when we saw the Mecca proclamations, we thought that would have made it, but when you look at it, it's really setting them up. If they say something. Right? Because if they say, okay, well, yeah, the Moors are the indigenous people, then now, because don't forget, they have the whole Indian fraud going on here, which is not the Indian fraud as across the border, because it's a different jurisdiction, right? Up here, it's a totally different thing when it comes to Indians and all that type of stuff, right? Because they know the history up here. They know what they did to have Hudson Bay store downtown, making $80 million a year or whatever. They know what they did to have that. But, if they can keep up the front that, this is Canada's a lily white, you could come here, do anything that you want, come visit, you know what I'm saying? Right, we'll bring you in, we have all these, immigrant programs and stuff like that, benefits for the immigrants. Come on down. Like Mayor Ford said, Toronto's open for business. Right, because that's what they're about. And those people that are coming from other places, they're coming here with a nationality, right? They become naturalized, right? They become naturalized without even knowing that the people that are naturalizing them don't even have the authority to naturalize. So now they just got themselves in a contract with an artificial entity. Right? And the only reason that they were allowed to get themselves into that contract is because where they live, they ran that fraud. They stuck it under the people, and the people just went with it. Right? No different like what they're doing in Iraq and all that right now. Right? Pushing this idea of democracy, and you guys need a democratic national ID card now, so that and then the people buy into it. Some of them, through force, because really, it's Inquisition practices all over again, just on a different level. Check out do the research on the Spanish Inquisition. Right, the Spanish Inquisition, when they kicked the Moors and the Jews out of Spain, and be specific with Moors and Jews being kicked out of Spain, Spanish Inquisition. And then you'll see that the tactics and the practices that they used back then are what they're using right now, just a revamped version of it.
But you see what I'm worried about? I'm thinking about, say the movement becomes big, the Moorish movement becomes big before the Moor actually started to build. Then the corporation they could be like, yeah, you want to be a Moor, you're Moor, okay, but you know what? I'm going to strip you from your Canadian citizenship. And now you don't have access to school, you don't have access to etiquette, to hospital. Yeah. You don't have access because they could do that.
Yeah. And if they do that, what they're really going to be doing is freeing us.
If they do that, then they're going to be confirming that what we're saying
that what we're saying is legit.
Right. Yeah.
That they are a fraud. Because remember, Remember, once they lose all that energy,
Power.
right? Once they lose all that power called citizenry, because the citizenry realizes that, hold on a second, these guys are private corporation. Like, why am I even dealing with you guys in the first place, right? Especially when, in wherever they come from, they realize that, you know, that system over there is crashing. That's another reason why everybody's coming here, because where they live, their system's crashing, and they're thinking that, oh yeah, well, you know, the dollar here is so much better than the dollar where I'm at, when it's fiat here too. They're just jumping from fraudulent jurisdiction to fraudulent jurisdiction, right? And then get trapped in it. Just like what you're saying, because now they took away the this, they took away the that, and took away that. You can't make any money now. You can't leave.
But they could do that to
Right.
us too.
Well,
So what then?
but again, if they do that to us, they're really taking off the shackles. They're really freeing us. If they say, you know what? Oh yeah, you want to be a Moor? Okay, we're going to renounce everything, right? Then that's giving us power to be the republic.
Then we have our own
Yeah.
hospital,
Yeah,
our
but
own
we have to
everything.
build
Right.
all that. We'll be behind schedule.
Yeah, no, not necessarily, because remember, this is not their land. So once the people realize that we're actually the government and those guys aren't the government,
They're gonna come together.
right?
and it's
The
gonna-
people will come together, and that would make these people jump in boats and leave. Not because
But
you know they're running,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
because they realize that they're not
Just
slaves
drop
no
this
more.
over there. But there'd be a period
They're
of
not
drought,
slaves. Huh?
There would be a period of drought, right?
Yo, everything out here is gonna be ours.
But there's gonna be a period like at least a 500 period where it's the transition period where
What-
people are dying,
what-
people don't have nothing.
But what
Yeah,
really is
because
what really is the transition
What I'm
period?
saying is this: watch this. When they take off for a right, they start realizing the movement's getting too big, and then like, okay, well, you know what, you guys are outlaws. You guys can't use this. You guys can't use that. The rest of the people is not gonna automatically jump and be like, you know what, these guys are right. It's gonna take them a long time.
No, but
Before
you know,
all
no,
the
but what's gonna make them jump? Don't forget
Freedom.
all those people who they've been paying taxes to, who they've been going to their church or whatever. They're going to those doors, and all those doors are gonna be locked up.
On them,
They're gonna have to
yeah.
get on what
Yeah.
they're gonna have to. It's once the European leaves, right? It's like they set up everything, right? They set up everything as far as, you know, how stuff runs, but the structure is what we built.
That's right.
But they're not just gonna leave.
When they went to Egypt,
They-
and
They're
They're-
just gonna pack up
They're
and leave.
they're not
People
just gonna
die.
pack up and leave right now because
Probably
like-
just gonna play the back.
because they can't, right? But guaranteed, if Negro, blacks, colored people stop saying that they're Negro, black, colored people, African, and we want to go back to Africa and we want reparations, and if they say, you know what, it's really our fault why we got in slavery, because we were really enslaved ourselves. So how about we, you know, go back to when we fell and then fix from when we fell moving forward, instead of trying to, you know, fix in the broken down state, right? How about we go back to 1492? How about we go back to 7/11 when we went and raided Europe? You know, they say, you know, we made the statement that, you know, we civilized the Europeans when we went to Europe, right? They made the statement that we conquered, but they say we were the best conquerors, right? Like that's how they talk about the Moors in Europe. Yeah, they conquered, but they were the best conquerors. You know, everybody lived in peace under these conquerors or whatever, right? You know, which comes back to the same thing. But they're giving it up. They're letting us know that we're the master and they're the slave.
Plus the
The master
international
running a
community watching
civilization
Right?
the right way.
All they want is the master to be the master again. That's really what they're waiting for. You know, and they're getting tired waiting because they're dying out. So they got to create melanomas so they can take shots so they can live longer in the sun, because the sun's only getting hotter because it's the Aquarian age, and they're dying off in whether it's winter, summer, whatever, they're dying off. And then brothers and sisters are still here. How much Europeans died of cold in Europe?
Yeah.
The brothers and sisters in Europe aren't dying. Right? And they're going to make the thing, oh, well, you know, well, you guys weren't in Canada for so long because, you know, it's cold up there.
Yeah,
Black people can't live in the cold.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Mm.
You know what I mean? You know, we don't lose our melanin, right? We have that.
Well, all I'm saying is that, like,
You know?
between the period of time,
Yeah, definitely there's going to be a transition.
There's got to be like
Right.
some kind of backup emergency thing.
yo,
like
like-
a team that builds up thing, knowing what's going to come. Can't just be from A to B. If A to B, between that time period, there'll be a lot of death.
International teams don't want to do business. They're going to want to do
Yeah.
business, right? And we need to start looking at who
Yeah.
we do business with.
Yeah.
Right.
Because just like if you look at the other nation, for example, the Indian, if they had happened to be the more from this country, they could have had this stuff, or like the Chinese people, they could have done that and nothing would have happened because they already have their own stuff
Right.
going on.
Right.
They have their own hospital, their own mall, nothing
Yeah.
would have changed.
But I see, like,
Us, we have nothing, you know.
but then
It's gonna
again,
be it's gonna be a long period to build, and it's
But
gonna
again-
die out for a while.
them having those things, right? Them having a mall and a bank and a hospital that's in Chinese or whatever is not because they have some type of superior power than us. It's because they have a nationality we don't.
Yeah.
Period. How come the Shriners could have a hospital? Because, you know, they're European, but they're really more scientists in secret. You know, they're more scientists and they deal with things on those principles and they're successful.
So you
Nah.
think we have to become a nation,
Right,
get our
we-
nationality, and then
Right. Once
we
you have,
our
because
own
nationality is not just, you know, connecting yourself to a nation. It's also a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
You know, and all those things that you're talking about, you know, like having issues when the transition happens.
Yes.
Nationality would clear that up in your mind immediately. Immediately, once you start getting on national principles and you start studying, you know, how other nations do stuff, and you start looking around the world and you find out that, hold on a second, everywhere in the world they have a national identification card. They don't use a license as ID around the world.
That's true, but I have a feeling
You know what I mean?
you see, I have a feeling that everything has to be done at the same time. The same with the teaching are being done for the Moorish. At the same time, there has to be a group here that takes care of the economic part. A
Right.
group here that takes care of like it all
Right,
has to be
but
together.
that's-
You can't just
but that's what-
split it apart,
That
right?
that's the departments of the government.
Right, exactly. Just like
Right?
that.
Yeah, that's the
exactly,
departments of the government.
yeah.
But that's
But
what.
within us, just like how
Right,
we're sitting
yeah,
at the table now,
exactly.
there's one guy over here who takes care of economics.
And that's
this guy
why-
over here takes care of religious aspect. This guy over here metaphysics. You know
Right.
what I mean?
And that's why Juali set up everything how he set it up. Because what was really supposed to happen is that NY, that's the economic branch
And why?
of NOI, the Nation of Islam.
Okay.
They follow the economic program of Noble Juali. That's why they're successful economically. That's why they're recognized.
Yeah.
That's why they have power economically to go get
Yeah.
Washington to go do a march. Because they have power. It might be fiat power because now they're all bought out.
Yeah.
But the essence of what they dealt with was the economic program of being a treasury, having a treasury, everybody put their money into one thing. If you're not down with that, get the hell out because we don't play that.
Yeah, they're even gonna build a hospital
Right?
too.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
black hospital
Which
at the time.
you know, like
Yeah.
why wouldn't they do that? That's the obligation of them.
Yeah.
You know, but really, if you're gonna go build a hospital, that's for you to give people jobs and stuff. That's not for you to,
Yeah.
you know, or that's your hospital, so only you can go get special treatment and you know what I mean? And the hood's still, everybody's still
Starving.
trying to get, you know, their health card when they could just go to your hospital for free. You know,
There
that's the
are-
perspective of that.
There are hospitals among those many who consider themselves black in the state.